Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Writing Visual Studio Extensions with Matt. That's me. And as always, we got James.
Hey, how's it going? Look at this. I can now put your face up in the top right corner at any time. When there's a Mads moment, boom, I'm going to do that. I love it. I am here, and I'm super excited for the stuff you're working on today.
Okay. So, what do you like?
I don't know how
like
I feel about that.
Like the pipe?
Yeah. I saw you tweeted about that.
Pipe. Yeah, I had to use it for an internal video I'm doing for like an event we're doing.
For the car mob stuff?
So,
no one knows what car mob means. I didn't even know what it meant. And I got emails about it, and I'm like, what's this car mob about? I'm like, I don't own a car. I'm like, wait a second.
It's career mobility. I don't know how much we can talk about it, but it's very interesting. I had to do a video. I was lying down on my washer and dryer out here in the garage and smoking a pipe.
I'm gonna have to watch yours now and see how that goes.
I have to watch it. I'll share it with the world if I'm allowed to. That would be kind of cool. So, hello everybody, Stephen, Alex, Jonas. Good evening to well, here in Redmond it's actually kind of afternoon, and that's wonderful. Today we're going to do another editor extension. We're going to look at a problem that I've had, I think a lot of you have had in the past, and it was recently suggested by a user of Visual Studio on the developer community as a feature request. And the feature is, or maybe the issue is that we're trying to solve here is, when you paste a very large amount of text by accident, or not by accident, into Visual Studio, that can take a long time where you see Visual Studio kind of is hanging, trying to process that large amount of text that you pasted into your text editor, like C# or whatever, XML, whatever the language might be. That's Jonas. All right. It's your feature. Cool. And so, I've been thinking about this. There's actually, here's what the problem is. The problem is when we have a huge amount of text that we insert into an editor or into the editor in Visual Studio, whatever the language service is, whether it's C# or Markdown or JavaScript, so on, that language service will have to start colorizing it and maybe do some formatting on paste. All sorts of things is going to happen. And depending on how that language service is written, a lot of it can be on the UI thread. And that will then cause Visual Studio to hang because now it's doing a lot of work on the UI thread. And that's just not a good idea. So, but it's WPF, and every time we paint something on the screen, like changing color, whatever, that is a UI thread thing. And so kind of regardless of how it works, it's like we put some stress on the UI thread. And so how do we make sure that when you are by accident pasting a huge amount of text that we don't hang Visual Studio? And the suggestion was that we just warn users, hey, you're about to insert a huge amount of text. Are you sure you want to continue? Something to that effect. What do you think, James? Sounds like a good idea?
I love it. I'm in. I need it every day.
You need it every day. You accidentally paste a lot of huge text?
Well, on occasion, sometimes I like to paste like JSON in, just, and then I'm just like, I just want to read it from a string and just paste it in there. Now, sometimes, you just like, here's this amazing class that's on GitHub. Give me all of it.
Yep.
But, I mean, I'm not going to say that I go to GitHub or Stack Overflow once, maybe 8 times a day and do that. But some people may.
You know what? If you copy from your own repos, that would be fine, right?
I guess it depends if there's an MIT. I mean, I only do it if there's an MIT license. And of course, I'm accrediting it in the top.
MIT. I use Apache for all my stuff.
Oh, we're all MIT.
Well, I don't know. I think Apache is the one that is allowing you to do a little bit more. It's more open, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, I think it's like you can basically use all my code for whatever you want, as long as you don't reuse the name. And do you have to give credit if you sell it or something like that? But otherwise, it's use however you want.
I still, no matter what the license is, whether it's Apache or MIT, I always give everybody their credits. Like in my things,
Yeah.
but you should have like emo maybe on the VS Office Hours to talk about like code management of like all this stuff and licensing or something like that. That'd be kind of cool because he does a
That
lot
would
of
be
that
cool.
stuff. Yeah,
I think a lot of people don't know about licensing, like open source licenses. I don't.
know.
I kind of just use what I've always used, and I haven't thought about it much.
Yeah.
So let's look at my screen. We're gonna take a look at the tweakster repo, and this is for a Visual Studio extension called Tweaks. So Tweaks is this extension that has a bunch of features that are tiny little things that in and by themselves probably wouldn't be worthy of its own extension. And what I mean by that is, like, I doubt that people would install an extension for such a small, very niche feature. But Tweaks is the one where it's okay, what if we put them all together, all these small little things, all these little paper cuts, we fix them all and we put them in the same extension. And that's what Tweaks is, exactly what it is. And so that's what we have here. So let's go to the issues. And you can see here we have the feature suggestion: warn before pasting huge amount of text into editor. And that was inspired by an actual developer community feature request, or suggestion ticket, as we call it internally. So this suggestion, or this feature request, that is the key to get a feature into the Tweaks extension. The rule is that the Tweaks extension only implements stuff that has been requested on the developer community, which is this thing right here. And how do we do that? Well, we go to help inside Visual Studio, send feedback, suggest a feature. I don't know if people are aware of this, but we actually redid how we are doing that. Notice how this opens up a website and you're automatically logged in because it logs you in through Visual Studio. This is brand new. So anyway, here's how you can suggest a feature. And let's take a look. So, sip of water. So in Tweaks, we have a folder called Tweaks. And it has subfolders for sort of categories of tweaks. And what we want to do something with the editor. So we want to be in here. You'll see there's probably like one class or one file per feature. So we're going to add a new class. And this time I'm going to say add new item. And I'm going to go to extensibility. And I'm going to do editor command handler. And we're going to call this warn on paste. All right, warn on paste. Yeah, I think so. It's right enough. All right. So here we go. Oh, what's that keyboard shortcut to collapse everything? There's like a keyboard shortcut that does it. And it's not full screen. It's window. Where is it? Hide all. Auto hide all. Shift insert. Boom. Okay. So here's what we want to do. We want to intercept the command for pasting. And that means that I have to change this thing, this particular generic argument, to something that has to do with paste. So I'm guessing, I don't actually know, that there's something called paste command args. No suggestions. Is that really? Can that really be true? Oh, no, there is. There it is. Paste command args. And then I have to do that here, where it says editor command args, and down here too. So paste command args basically, let's see here. Yeah, that's fine. Implements editor command args, right? So editor is or extended, it's the base class. So what are we doing here? So we have three things we need to do. We need to define a display name. Well, our item template did that for us. So this item template, to get this one, you need the extensibility essentials extension. It comes with some item templates including this one. And this particular command handler is for editors only. So it only works if you want to do something in the editor. You can't like use it to intercept or override or something like that. A command that has to do with, like, let's say showing a tool window or something that is not editor related. So first of all, here's what we're gonna do. Let's talk about the logic for a second here. The way that I'm thinking about this, how this should work, is that when the paste command is executed, we're going to get in first, and we're going to see whether or not the clipboard contains a large amount of data. Is it over some sort of threshold? Let's just make something up. 1,000 characters. We should do more. 5,000 characters, let's say. Is that right? Let's just say 1,000 characters. And if it is, then we prompt the user, do you want to continue pasting this big amount of data? And if they say no, then we're going to stop the paste command from continuing. But if they say yes, then we're going to let it just continue, and we're going to that's it. It's a very simple feature. Well, at least that's what I thought. That's what I hope. So that means, because we can either let it continue to its to whatever handles the paste command today, the built-in paste command handler, we can either pass it on to it or not, right? Or swallow it as we're right there before it gets to it. We have to say that this command is not available or unavailable. It is unspecified. That allows us, this value has to be unspecified. Otherwise, we can't dynamically determine to stop or pass on the logic to the next handler. So when you're pasting, we need the clipboard. So clipboard, get text. I don't want to get the text necessarily, right? I just want to know the size of it. Contains data, does that tell me? No. So maybe I have to get the whole text. That means I have to allocate that. I kind of don't want to do that. What if I just say get data object? Oh yeah, hang on. Get data object dot get data, get formats. No. I'm trying to follow along here. So, okay, so let's just get the text for now. We can always go back. Say clipboard, get text as an overload. Text format. See what that is. Just the raw text. We don't care about it. It's going to strip everything else. So let's just get that length. That's what we don't care about, the actual text, right? Because we're not going to do anything with that. Okay, so if length is larger than, should we say 1,000? Then, then we're going to show message box. So one thing we can do here is that we can use a regular message box, like the one that's built into WPF or Windows Forms, right? Message box.show. But if we do that, then it's not necessarily parented to the window. And it doesn't follow necessarily the right threading models and so on that we kind of want in Visual Studio. So the best thing to do is to use the utilities. And Visual Studio ship with utility. See if we can find here, utility. So just type util, and you can see we have a bunch of utilities here. Web utilities, that's not it. Package utilities, VS shell utilities dot show message box. See that? Want the service provider. I don't have a service provider right here. What's the easiest way to get a service provider? Oh man, I always forget this. So we're in a MEF component and I want a service provider. I could just say something like package dot get global service, right? And then what is the service provider? Is it SVS service provider? Is this really going to work? Is that what you're saying? Not async. Let's just do I service provider. Okay, let's see here. Which one do we want? We want the systemized service provider. Type of. This may not work. Should the message be? Why is this complaining? Oh, it's acting a little slow today over here, James. What's it doing? Yeah, it's doing a little bit more than usual. Now, what's that about? Of course, it is the browser where I run the whole broadcast stuff from. Okay. So show message box. We're going to have a message. Just do it like this. And then we're going to have a title. We're going to use our v6.name. Then we're going to have icon. We're going to have info. And let's just get rid of this. Oh. Oh, did I not select it? Need that one. And then we need have a button we want. We want OK cancel. Finally, what is the default? Let's just do the first one. I should probably do like nice formatting here. Okay. So because I do nice formatting, we're going to nuke that. We're going to go in here. We're going to say this. Hey, do you want to paste are you sure you want to paste? And then what did we have? We had number of characters into the editor, question mark. We should format this. What are the there's like some new syntax, right? For it's like something like colon, and then you can do like, oh, what is it? You can do string format. I mean, we can do this for sure. I just want the, is it n? I basically want, what is this about? Oh, oh yeah, of course, it's just a toString value. Dope. Dope, dope, dope. Okay. And is it n that just put like the separator in? I don't know. Maybe it is.
It is.
Oh, James, thank you. Did you just happen to know?
I did an app recently. I built an app recently that pulls in COVID-19 stats, so I can display them in my live stream, and they're just, it's like it's text. So I did the formatting very similarly, and it took me like to go to the documentation, which is very clearly lays out everything, and yeah, then it was n. So,
okay. So this one is going to give us.
Stands for number, I believe. I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's easy. Okay, so it's going to tell us if we want to continue or not. So we can say, if, or we can just say return proceed equals, let's see, what is this? As okay. Yeah. And there's an enum somewhere. Oh, what is it? Oh, there it is. So return if that equals as okay. So if we return true, but how is it? Let's see here. This is the one I always get wrong. Let's look at one of the other ones. If I return true, does it stop? Or is it if I return false? Run code on cleanup. On format. So it returns false. That means what? That means pass through. No, this is a bad example. That doesn't tell me what I want to know. Here, copy. I take over the copy command. Do I return true at any point at all? At the very end. Okay, so return true means don't continue. So don't continue. So if this is true, so that means this, right? And then finally return false. You can continue if we're not. Oh, I should do this. If it's less than 1,000, it'll be cleaner. Return false. Just like that. Wow, this is just, I'm almost scared to compile here. Let me see. I may be able to close down some things. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm just gonna, yeah, that's fine. So I'm building. So this should totally now work. Okay. I need some text. Where's a good source of text? Well, I know where. Like there's always some lorem ipsum generator somewhere, right? 5 paragraphs. What about 500? There you go. All right, copy that. And here we let's just do a new text file there. Okay, ready? I'm gonna paste. Paste. And nothing. How could that be? Oh, because I did code. I should have done any or text. Okay, so let's open a code file instead. Like a text file is pretty much the only thing that's not a code file. Let's do JavaScript. Oh, that's bizarre. Let's see here. It probably doesn't trigger. I wonder if I need to bump the version. What is this, Kaggle.com? They got like some text you can paste. Paste the whole Windows XP source code in there. Yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, okay. So it did execute. It just silently failed because what? Service provider is null. That thing cannot be. Let's try this. Not cast this. See what type we get. That wouldn't work. It's a COM component. Oh, it doesn't work at all? Really? Okay. We have our issue. It was the service provider. So getting the service provider, how do we do that? Well, And that's also why we got that yellow bar saying there was an exception. So it didn't silently fail as such. Okay, so getting a service provider from a MEF component. I've done this before. So let's go ahead and do the only sane thing. We're going to search GitHub. There's not that many for C#. Let's see here. Yikes, there is. All right. Service provider. This SVS service provider. Here, this could be a MEF component. Yep. Okay. So they're not setting it. Privates. Okay. Am I not seeing something here? They're never setting this, are they? Oh, it's import. Oh, that's how you do it. Okay. Silly me. So because this is a MEF component, I can do this. I kind of like it to be like this, by the way. So we're going to import our service provider. There we go. So gone is that. And then we do service provider. There we go. So this is kind of an interesting thing. So with MEF, the way that it works is it's a completely different resolution system than it is when we have packages and we resolve services in Visual Studio. MEF, it deals with like imports and exports. And so whenever we want to request something, then we do it through an import. Okay, so did I change it to text? Yes. All right, so let's do text. Paste. And okay, Kaggle. I'm afraid. Should I do this? Live. I have no idea what this website is. Who suggested this? Was it Jonas? Okay, I'm just gonna try it. Oh no. Blinking cursor. Oh, okay. It's like one of those placeholder things. Let's just go back in here. There we go. That should do it. Aha. See that? Tweak says, are you sure you want to paste 11,000? Oh, hey, James, the N was not correct. Look, it gives me like the decimal points here too. We don't need decimals.
N0 is what you want.
Yes. Thank you. N:0 or N0?
Just N0.
Okay. See, but now it says I could be smarter here. Okay, let's see what you can do. Simplify it. See, I knew there was a trick here to this. That is so much prettier. So this is probably C#8. Yep, John, exactly. 0 cents here in this case. We're going to do all natural numbers. Okay. So I don't know about you out there, but is this it? Did we just implement this feature request? Oh, it's 1,000. Let's do 10,000, right? 10,000. I think that makes sense. Let's just see here because I think we had 11,000. Let's just see how much that actually is. So in my clipboard, I have 11,000 characters. Oh, we need a way to turn it off too. So we need a setting. So you could say, well, we should make a setting for that number. Should it be 10,000 or whatever should the threshold be? But I'm going to say no, we should not. I'm just going to take a screenshot of this. No, that was not right. I'm gonna do what? Window. That's how we do it. And then I want the screenshot because I need to put something into the README file. So where do we put this? General editor. Editor is the last one. So let's just go to the bottom. And your settings. I feel like settings should be bigger than that. Why is that? Okay. Anyway, let's put it right here. So I'm just going to paste it, and it goes in here, and we call it warn on paste. There we go. Okay. So did it actually do? Did that actually work? Sure you want to paste it? Okay. It just doesn't do it. What's up with that? I thought we just saw it work. Okay. Well, I guess we'll have to reattach. It could be that, no, that could be something about the service provider being weird. Okay, that's a 1. Ah, okay is a 0. Well, in that case, right? What is cancel? 2. Ah.
Someone got their index off there.
Yeah, I wish it was just an index. I could just. It's because it's okay. What does okay mean? Should it be yes and no instead of okay cancel? Like, do you want to paste into the editor? Yes or no? And if I do it this way, yeah, that makes sense, right? Yes or no? But will the escape key then work? Are VS constants flags? John asks. Yes. They are. Oh, no, flags as in you can have multiple of them? I don't know if they are. I don't think so. I've never seen them used. This is for COM stuff. Those things are to see the result of COM values. So they're old. I don't think. Yeah, I just don't think. Okay, that wasn't right either. Maybe I should use my pipe here a little bit while I think about it. Okay, let's hit it again. Okay, so yes is 6. Okay, so that's fine. That's good to know. Let's just keep going. So if yes is 6, then no is what? Is 7. Okay, and can I cancel with escape? No. Well, that's important. So maybe it should be okay cancel, huh? Or yes, there's also a yes no cancel. Okay. So yes was 6. Can I just say yes? Okay, then we do this. All right. I can compile because the experimental instance is open. And then the last thing we needed to do, that's setting, right? What? What is going on here? What is going on? Oh, you know what I think happened? Because it didn't build correctly before, I need to like basically do a clean and then we do it again. I'm looking through here to see if there's any questions that I missed. Hey, James, the people that ask questions on YouTube, can the people on Twitch see those questions and vice versa?
I highlight them on the stream so they can see them on the stream, but no, they can't.
Okay.
Only we can. Wahahaha. But yeah, that's why I highlight them on the screen. So I try to do my best.
Oh, there's that video. Okay. So that was the clean.
Can visibly ask, can you just do proceed does not equal whatever the result of that is?
Oh, no.
Question mark? No.
So that's a 3. You see here on the screen, that's a 3. It's like what is yes and no and cancel would be 3 different values. I'm sure there is a constant I can use. I just couldn't find it. I spent all of like what was it, 2 seconds to find something, and I didn't find it, so I gave up. Yeah, right, Pierce.
I'm trying. I need to power automate it. Sorry.
Oh, look at that. Did you see that? Now we don't do anything. In that case, we should just do yes, cancel. This is weird, right? Yes, no, cancel. I think so. So now it works. Yeah, that's great.
It's always weird there is a yes, no, cancel, because obviously cancel also means no.
Yeah.
Oh, no, actually, no, it doesn't. Technically, you could have, and it is a third choice, right? Because it's like, do you want to buy an apple? And you're like, no. But if you hit cancel, then it rolls it back, right? And you haven't even started the thing. So I think yes, no, cancel is wrong in this situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Nikolai, he says, if it had been regular message box, it would be dialog result. Okay, absolutely. Yeah. And we could have used a dialog, like a message box. We could have. But as I said, I would kind of encourage you all to use this built-in one instead, even though it's a little bit kind of annoying to use, I guess, relatively speaking. Okay, so now I hit the escape key. Yes. It still works. 10,000. How bad is that? We should make it even more, right? Should it be 20,000 or is 10,000?
What if you made it a setting?
Yeah, but you see, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that because we do need a setting. So, okay. Where is it? Editor options. We already have some, so we're just going to copy this one and put it here. So warn on paste. Warn when pasting large amounts of text into the editor. True, yes. It's on by default, sure. Okay. So let's talk about 2 things. Let's talk about being on by default, and then subsequently a setting for the size, the number size. So we always want our features to be on by default. Like I'm sure there are special cases where we don't want that, but we know that people are not going to go into tools options and change whatever is the default. So we want to make sure that we have sensible defaults. Always have sensible defaults. If you're rolling out something new and you want people to try it, then it's fine to have a setting and let them know that it's there, and then they can opt in if they want to, or even prompt them to set the setting, right? You can actually have a message box coming up, say, hey, we have this new thing. Do you want to enable it? True, yes or no. And then you can just then modify the settings programmatically. And that would be fine. But yeah, sensible defaults, people are not going to change the defaults most of the time. So If we're not on by default, then it's almost like we don't really need to do the feature at all. Okay. So if you want to do the feature, if you feel that it has value, if your customer tells you it has value, then it has to be on by default. That's true for us as well, like the Visual Studio team when we build stuff. Yes, VS Constants is a class with constants in it. That's right. Okay. So now the question is, can we just put that in here? Could we actually check for whether that setting is set here so that we could do something like this? That would be return options instant warn. If this, then return command state unspecified. Otherwise, return available. Is that a thing? Would this work? I don't actually know. Oh, Luke, to the rescue. Yes. You just found it, number 1. Yeah. What is this? It's a struct. What? That can't be right. What happened? Oh, it's just because it's slow or what? No. Oh, this one is the integer. Yeah. All right. So let's see if this works. What I'm curious about here is I don't actually know how this work. I don't know if we can be dynamic in this particular method because it might just check it once. So let's try. James, what's Matt's pop-up?
Just put your head in the top right on the screen.
Oh. I thought you just coined a new type of dialogue in Visual Studio.
No, I hope that they have GIFs support soon. They may actually already have it. I'm going to put an animated GIF of you up there. That'd be great.
That sounds like an extension. Just write an animated GIF extension for Visual Studio, so when it's in full screen, I can still be there. Okay, so this continues to work. Now we're going to go into Tools, Options, Tweaks, Editor. We're not going to warn anymore. I'm going to paste, and it still comes up. Okay, so yeah, so it only reached that value once. That is what I was afraid of. Well, and that's an overstatement. So why this doesn't work is because this particular method is only executed at one time, and that's when the MEF component, which this is a MEF component due to our export up here. So when that's initialized and it's read, the value here is only read that one time. I think actually I remember some about that it doesn't run it more than once. So we'll have to do it the old-fashioned way. So we just do it up here. If options instance warn. So if not, return false. Yep, there we go. So I just hit save, and that automatically runs my code cleanup rules, which I have. I always just add all my rules in here to my code cleanup. And then instead of hitting this button or Control KE, I have an extension. This is a pro tip here, James. I use an extension called Code Cleanup on Save. So it just automatically executes. We talked about this in one episode, actually. Or we fixed some bugs in it. I kind of like to do that. It kind of fixes if I use var it will automatically convert it to like the name instead, the type name. And that means that I can just always just write var, and it will then, after the fact, when I save, it will do the right thing. So that makes typing easier for me and faster. Okay, so now I'm gonna paste, and we had disabled it. So now it just paste in. It didn't even prompt. All right, if we go up here, and we turn this back, and now paste. Yes. Boom. All right. We got a feature, everybody. It's time to document it. So this feature is called warn. If I can spell, warn on paste. What should I call this? Warn on paste large, no, huge text. This is great English, I think. Any ideas in the comments? Do I need any special Visual Studio extension or workload to build Visual Studio extensions? Piers, the answer is no. And then I would say that you need, to help yourself, you should get an extension called Extensibility Essentials. Okay. You can do, you can use Community Edition. Warn on paste massive content. Yeah, that's another good one. When pasting huge amounts of text into the editor, Studio will ask you to confirm this is to avoid accidental pastes or inserts that may cause Visual Studio to freeze. So that's warn on paste. Okay, and let's put it up in the TOC.
Does it really freeze though? How big does it have to be to freeze?
Let's talk about that.
Like I asked questions. Oh, let's talk about that.
Warn on paste, huge text.
And why? Why does it freeze?
Why does it freeze? Well,
it's because
I'm glad you're asking.
32-bit.
Oh, that thing again. Let me image optimize here first. Run image optimizer, because I just inserted this picture right here. 48.7%. See that? So we just reduced the size by 48%. Pretty darn good. We could squeeze a little extra, 0.2 out, and now probably nothing. No. All right. So let's commit this. Let's find the bug. Go away. Number is it? And there it is, number 44. Okay. Added. Warn on paste. Confirmation. No, warn on paste feature. Fixes. Number 44. Number 44. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's a go. Warn on paste large text. Yep. Okay, so the question was, will it freeze? No, and freeze is like a weird term. We don't actually use freeze internally. We call it a hang. So a hang could be a few seconds. It could be longer, right? It could eventually end in like a Stack Overflow exception. That could be why it hangs. Like you just keep the UI thread busy and allocate more and more memory, and that could be fast or it could be slow, and then eventually VS will crash. But usually it's just because that the UI thread is doing some work, and then the UI is unresponsive while that happens. That's true for any app that does work on the UI thread, right? Any WPF app, Windows Forms, whatever technology you use. If you're using the UI thread, then you can't do any interaction at the same time. And so it could also be because of a deadlock. So it could be that you have a background task doing something in a thread, and the UI thread is waiting on it. And maybe that background thread is also then waiting on something from the UI thread. And then you have that classic deadlock where, it's frozen forever. It's hung forever. But in this case, it's likely just because it takes time for the language service to process the text that you're inserting, to colorize it and classify it and so on. So that's what that is. Just put an async in. Yeah, that usually actually does work. In this case, it does not, because look at this. What we want to do, we could, if we didn't have to pass this event on to the next command handler, we totally could have done a moved out of to a different thread here using async, the async APIs or something like that. Totally. Okay. So
Someone said you had a typo in your README, I think. Nicola said. Question mark, did you? I think for the worn on paste. And then what did you put up top for the ID?
Oh. Let me just copy this so that we do the same thing. Oh yeah, worn on pate. Nice.
Cloudburst says it should be worn -on -paste -huge -text.
Yes.
Because it's, technically, although you don't use dashes in anything else. So there's some inconsistencies in your IDs, sir.
I beg to differ. Where is the inconsistency?
This is also a README. This is also fascinating that, so inside of the README, if you were to use Markdown, it would automatically generate your IDs for you instead of you putting it in there. It would use the whole word though, and it would automatically do that for you with the dashes in it.
Yeah, and it would be wrong. I like to do it this way so I can control it.
I guess so, yeah.
Because sometimes because otherwise it gets really long.
It might change.
Mm-hmm.
Did you add a setting for the 10,000?
No, did we talk about that?
You did an always on default setting, right?
Right. So why don't we have this in here? Okay.
Yeah,
so
why not?
So what is the right user experience? So think of it this way. How would you like this feature to work? I'll tell you how I like it to work, and then you can see if you agree with me. I would like this feature to the problem it solves is that it should stop Visual Studio from freezing or hanging. And so if it's plain text, which is what we kind of looked into here, then, there's no language service. It's just plain text. There's no colorization or anything like that. But if it's like HTML or XML or C# or whatever, it's different. And those editors are also differently implemented. And so 10,000 might be fine in one language, but not so good in another. It should be 5,000 in another language. And, so the ultimate experience that I would have is that Visual Studio, based on my laptop's performance, right, and the language that I'm using, should allow me to paste the maximum amount of text without Visual Studio hanging. As an end user, I don't know what that is. I have absolutely no idea what that is. So how can I have a setting for that? The real implementation should be that I should, to this feature, add the capability of taking into account laptop horsepower. Well, maybe not, because you can have the most beefy machine, but if you're at the same time doing video recording or something like that, you could actually have very little CPU at your disposal. So maybe it shouldn't do that unless you can compensate for it somehow. I guess you could see what is the current CPU load, but that could be a spike just in that nanosecond or whatever, or second. So let's leave that aside. But you could do an index over the various languages saying, I know that HTML is slower, so I'm going to lower it by 20%, right? And I know JSON is super fast, so I'm going to add 30% to my baseline, which is 10,000. That would be the right implementation. So right now, I don't know the answer either, but it's definitely a thing that we could do. Actually, We could make it ready for it and add a to do. What if we do this? So what if we say private static? We want a length. We say max length, or get max length. Let's say, and it takes what's it an I text view. Okay, so what if we do this? So get max length, and it takes so args dot. It's probably not args. It could be args. Come on, text view. Because text view has, come on. Text buffer, does it have length? No, but text or content type. So we're just going to do this. So now we could say, okay, get the max length based on the text view. Then we could go in here and say, we can do a switch case. So we want to switch on view subject buffer or text buffer. Come on. It's kind of weird. Buffer graph. It's called text buffer. Text buffer. Content type. Content type dot. And I think it's display name. Yes. Okay. So return, let's say, but so our default is 10,000. And we go in here and say case. It's lowercase, it's lower merit. Just to be sure. So HTMLX. So if it's HTML, we're going to return 8,000. So if it's HTML or HTML or HTMLX. So HTML is web forms, and HTMLX is anything else. So there's actually two HTML editors, and so that's how that works. So we could have a to-do here that says to-do find threshold in each content type and adjust and return. No, just for each content type. Yeah. So James, do you agree with me? Do you think this makes sense? Instead of having a setting, it should be something like this?
Yeah, I like that. That makes more sense. I get it. I get it.
Finally get it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, less settings are always better, by the way. I actually believe in that philosophy. Now, like, if you're implementing a feature, you're obviously implementing it for a reason, turn on by default. And just if 80-20 rule, obviously. That'd be like the thing I think about. So yeah, it's good. Like 80-20 rule, I always say, like, if it's the best for like 80% of the users, then that should be no setting on by default. But if it's like a niche use case where only 20% of the user are going to do it, it should be off by default and it should be toggled on. But then you should also think, like, why am I implementing this feature?
Yep, that's right.
So.
To me, I see it like if you need a setting, it's either because you are not ready to ship the feature yet, or it's because your design lacks finesse. It's a little harsh to say, but I really don't like settings. I really don't like them. So you might be wondering, why does every single feature in this extension have a setting? Well, because of the nature of this extension is basically where you have many different types of things in one extension, and they could be completely unrelated, right? And so I want to make sure that if you want the extension because there's 3 of the features you want, then you have the ability not to enable the ones you don't want. So I think this is a special situation, but it's also where it's like, I don't want to impose these features on people. And so they're not, in that case, they're not, in that sense, they're not ready yet, right? So they kind of fall into that first bucket where it's like it's a preview. It's like I just want you to try it. But this is kind of a special case, I'd say. Always build MVPs and then modify based on user feedback, Biozal says on Twitch. So always build a minimum viable product and then modify based on user feedback. I don't know. I used to say the same thing, and now I probably will not agree. So a problem I have with that is that what is a minimal viable product? Let's expand on that just for a little bit. So I think, like, technically speaking, a minimal viable product is where the user can achieve the core functionality or the goal that the user's got with the minimal features available from your thing, right? And so that's a minimal viable product. The user can be successful with the minimal amount of work that you have to do. Okay. Are they going to love it? Is that going to be a great experience? Are they going to tell their friends about it? Are they going to feel all warm and fuzzy inside when they've used your minimal viable product? Maybe, right? But I'd argue no, because then it's not minimal. If it's minimal and it just works, then it's like function over form, which is fine, but design has to take both things into account. And so for me, I'm thinking I'd rather do a minimal lovable product. And it's not something I coined. I read it somewhere. So what is the minimal lovable product that we can ship, right? And to me, that is not having settings where you can set, do you want 10,000 characters, something that you have no idea what means, or what the right amount should be. That is not going to make anyone warm and fuzzy inside, right? That is not a nice thing to do, I think. And so that's my problem with the minimal viable product. I don't think it's a good solution. I think it was something that came out like about a decade ago. It became a big thing, but I think I'd rather do minimal lovable products, which is not that much extra work, to be fair, but it is extra work. The other idea of saying, okay, let's do the minimal thing first, and then after we ask for user feedback. Well, why didn't we ask for user feedback up front? So now we're in a situation where we're shipping something we're not entirely sure is done. We know it's not done, but we don't know what direction to take it. We're awaiting what the user says. Well, that to me sounds a little bit lazy. And that we don't have confidence in that we can design a feature. So for me, it's like, let's do the thing that we think is the right thing to do. We can course correct along the way. We can start sharing openly with the designs and get the feedback in the design process. And of course, this is an iterative process. So once we ship something, you're going to get feedback and then you can modify along the way. But I don't think we need to think that we can only finish something after we have given people something to use and then waiting for their feedback. I don't like that. What a lot of times end up happening is that we ship what I call the 80% feature. Like we build something and we are 80% done because we do exactly that. It might not be a minimal viable product. It might be like pretty good. Even better than minimal lovable, but we have pushed some decisions awaiting user feedback, and you know what? 2 months later, once we have that feedback, we've moved on. We're doing other things, and now we can't prioritize finishing that original feature that we were building because we've moved on to bigger, better things, right? The priorities of the business has changed and so on, and so now we end up with an 80% feature. It's 80% done. And I would argue it's probably not lovable, right? It doesn't have that lovable bit. So that was a very long thing there. What is Alex saying here? I guess it's also about time and actually shipping something. Yes. It'll never be released due to feature creep. So that absolutely. Feature creep is the worst. So again, I think you can plan your way out of that. It doesn't have to feature creep. And if you're feature creep in this sense means that if you have decided that you need to ship something and here's what you want to ship, if your manager or whatever comes in and says, no, you can't ship unless this feature comes in, that's a feature creep. if someone says, no, can you also do this? And say, yeah, sure, we can do it after our initial release. And then you schedule that, in the next sprint after release or whatever. So I used to be very worried about feature creeps especially back in the day when I was sort of more like a Scrum Master type of person. But I'm as a product owner and a program manager, I'm not worried about that. And I haven't been for like a long, long time. It doesn't seem to be the problem if you can scope your initial release. But everyone's different. I'm just saying this is my take on it, right? I'm not saying it's the right take on it.
Yeah, I'll chime in too. I think it's fascinating because I think a lot of this has sort of shifted over time too. I think you made a good point, which is doing that like user research up front. I think a lot of times us as PMs, we spend a lot of time speaking to customers and understanding. We have an idea, so we might do like a prototype, which is different than an MVP technically, and get user feedback there. Like, are we on the right path? What features are? We do this. What is it called? The CV? It's not CVP. That's a
customer something
value proposition value. It's something. But basically, it's like how important are these features? Like, and how important is this thing versus that thing that helps prioritize things? I think at some point, once you know those, then you're sort of in the mode of refining. Ideally, you get to that point, like, okay, is the 80% refined enough to meet those customer requirements or not? So I think if you flip it, which was like, go do something and then ask customers, and then flip it's like what you were saying, which is what we do, which is ask customers and then implement it, then it actually gets to makes the MVP not an MVP anymore, because you've already done the thing that the people want, right?
Yeah.
Because I think MVP is like, is it good enough? But if you know it's good enough ahead of time, then there's there. Unless you don't have any customers to talk to, then that would be a problem.
I would agree. And so that was a very long conversation about something, not about extensions per se. I knew that this was going to be a quick feature to implement, but I didn't know it was going to take over an hour, and we're done now. So I think we're done coding for today. But let's go through the questions here, and you highlight one. Also depends on the connection between dev team and the user or customer. You don't want to lose the customer by shipping something barely useful unless they know they will get their issues or requests solved soon. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean about the lovable product. You want them to fall in love with it so that they can't wait, so that they become your ambassadors, to their friends. They're going to recommend you, that sort of stuff. That's really what you want to do. Is that easy? No, of course not. But ideally, that's where you want to be. And so I think MVPs, they're great for internal stuff, like what James was saying, like proof of concepts or prototypes or whatever, and to convince people that let's go this way. Like, look at this. This is going to be so awesome, right? And I have it working, so it's just about, we know we can do it. Let's go for it. I think that's absolutely great. Extensions are products too. Yeah, absolutely. They're actually some of the best products. What else do we have here? I'm just scrolling through my iPad here.
Some people were curious about your use of StreamYard. I try to talk a little bit about how we use it, but maybe since, it's not about coding anymore, but, a lot of people are interested in streaming, but, you've never really streamed. You started some of your shows on Teams Live, and then I convinced you to use this stuff. So maybe you chime in really quick to see.
Yeah. I'm also using an iPad. Here I have all the questions. These are all you guys' questions. Hey, James, have you seen this? So when I'm using this StreamYard.com, so this is the streaming service in the browser. This is just Safari. I cannot turn down the volume 100%. It has to have the lowest bar. And so I have to put in something so it thinks that it's got headphones. I put headphones in, basically. Otherwise, I can hear myself talk through the iPad, like with a second delay or something. Because I don't actually look at the screen. So right now I'm looking at the screen and, James's studio here. But I don't do that while coding, because just having that screen up where basically the HTML canvas or video element is running, puts strain on my laptop enough that it slows down Visual Studio. Like it takes too many resources on my machine. So while I'm working on Visual Studio, I don't use this at all. I minimize the browser, and that frees up 10 to 15% of my CPU. just by minimizing the browser. I don't close it, just minimize it. Yep. All right. Thank you, Jonas, for letting me borrow your computer. I'd love to see something incorporating a web view into a panel in VS with an extension. Could we cover that on some point? Let's show my screen real quick. So Visual Studio does not have the concept of web view like Visual Studio Code does. But this is Markdown, the Markdown editor, and it renders this over here in a browser. It's actually just using the WPF browser framework control to host a browser. So you can totally do that. And it hosts it inside a margin in the editor. You can host it inside a tool window or whatever, but the concept of web view doesn't exist. So you can use the barebone browser. It's not a barebone browser control, but you have to load your own documents and stuff like that, which I guess it's similar to a web view in that sense. So yeah, it would be the same if you wanted to write a Windows Forms or WPF app and you want to host a browser, then you would do the exact same thing as I was doing here. I don't know. Let's see if we can find a use case for it. If you have a use case for it, then let's see if rendering in a browser is the best way to do it. And if it is, then I'm totally game for it. Make your own browser extension. I did write a browser once. It's on my blog. It's like 12 years ago or something. It was called a web developer's browser. This was before Firefox and Firebug and Chrome debug tools and any of that stuff existed. And it used the web control. Yeah, web browser control. Okay. Was that it, James?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I'll end it with the pipe. Well, thank you so much for joining me, everybody. And Monday, we have Visual Studio office hours. That's at 11 a.m. Monday Pacific time. So what would that be? That would be in like Europe, it would be 5 p.m. So that's about the editor. So I'm going to talk to Christian from the editor team, and we're going to discuss and figure out how does the editor actually work in Visual Studio. So we're going to take a super nerdy, technical deep dive into the editor, why it works the way it works, and what are all the different aspects of the editor. And maybe I'll ask him about some extensibility stuff as well. So tune into that Monday. And then next week, we're going to look at JSON schemas and how we ship them in Visual Studio, how we can do other things with JSON schema that you might not be aware of. That's really cool in Visual Studio, and Visual Studio for Mac, and Visual Studio Code, and also some competing IDEs out there. So stay tuned for that, and see you then.